Greetings, this is Grafrubia, the Nostalgic Catholic, with another Isaac Asimov short story review. Now, this is kind of an unusual place because it looks like a normal science fiction magazine. It's structured and built like one, but it's actually from Ballantine, and it's the Star Science Fiction, which is actually books for the most part. There's a series of maybe 5 or 6 books that were supposed to be like anthologies of various stories of science fiction writers, never published anywhere else before, but always of established science fiction writers. Isaac Asimov had a couple of stories featured in #1, which is even a little hardcover book, and #3, which seems to exist only in a paperback, so far as I can tell. But they're not numbered, except among that number there comes this thing, which is not numbered, but it's this one-off special thing they did where they just put something like a normal little magazine, normal science fiction magazine. January 1958. There is no other magazine like this of any other date, but it was part of that book series, except it's not numbered the way the books themselves are. Anyway, in this, we have another Isaac Asimov story, not on the cover, but mentioned here, Isaac Asimov, as in Sebatinsky, page 33. Zebatinsky, okay. So you get to 33. There is this weird little drawing, and it's kind of hard to make anything out from this drawing. I guess the idea is just, here's some sort of a very crude drawing of a person, I guess, and the S in their name is that important. I don't know what else to make with the drawing. There's no blurb here, and so we just have the story itself, and the story got collected into 9 Tomorrows, so far as I could tell, with no discernible differences. So I think that we can now just dive straight into the story itself. And the story starts with this guy whose name was Zebatinsky, with a Z, and somehow his wife kind of persuades him to go see this numerologist in this dusty curio type shop sort of corner of town. You go in there and it's like, where people always find really exotic things, especially in science fiction stories. Like lamps you rub and the genie comes out and things like that kind of a place. Only this isn't full of stuff. It just has a guy at a desk, and he's a numerologist. And this guy's an atomic physicist. He's going there. He's putting on a hat. He's taking his glasses off so people won't know who he is, and looking about, making sure nobody recognizes him, see where he's going, and say, why would this atomic physicist, a good, hard, solid scientist, be going to something like that? That's just out of character. But he went, whatever. And the guy persuades him, give me all this information, and a lot of it, I'll see the relevance of it, and come back in a couple of weeks, and I'll have something for you. So he does all this stuff. He comes back in a couple of weeks. $50 later, he walks out with one small change. Your name has been Zebatinsky. Change it to Sebatinsky with an S. Spell my name with an S, hence the title. And it changes his life. And because sometimes numerologies people will do that. How many famous stars in acting and music and so forth have changed their name, have a stage name, and usually they've probably consulted a numerologist to help them choose an effective stage name. Yeah, okay, whatever. It made them lucky. Well, they are lucky. I mean, skill and hard work's part of it, but there's no guarantee of success. But okay, but this isn't like that at all. It's kind of a neat story. Why does a nuclear physicist change his name from Zebatinsky to Sebatinsky? And somehow, somebody or other seeing this, why is he doing that? Why didn't he change it to Jones or something? If he wants to change his name. That makes me think of the joke where the guy comes to the judge. I want to change my name. Well, what is your name now? It says Joe Shitz, Schitz, but it doesn't sound too great, does it? And the judge says, well, I can see you'd like to change your name. So what would you like to change it to? And he says, I'd like to change my name to Vincent Shitz, Your Honor. And the judge says, well, why? Well, I get tired of it. Hello, Joe. What do you know? So Vincent was better. Never mind the last name of Shitz. And it's kind of one of these things where you get a name change. It's again kind of an unexpected one. Why didn't he just change it to Jones or Smith or something instead of just going to Sebatinsky instead of Zebatinsky? And then apparently there's some Zebatinskys, it turns out, who are also nuclear physicists, or at least one at least. There's a nuclear physicist somewhere behind the Iron Curtain, maybe in Poland, Russia. They kind of talk about both. Remember, this is written at the time when Poland was clearly in the Soviet orbit and not its own, far more independent and free country than it is, as I say it is now. So, the ebbs and flows of history, huh? Anyway, that's how it was, and I guess it was hard to believe things would ever change. So, at any rate, somebody looks that up and they discover, well, the behind the Iron Curtain, Zebatinsky dropped out of sight about a year ago. Really? But he's a nuclear physicist. They're not going to just kill him off. Obviously, they want him for something. Well, what do we know about him? They chased down his papers. Turns out he has some areas of expertise. They start looking for other people, for other Russian nuclear physicists who have disappeared in the same general time frame. Turns out there's a list of them. Look at their articles. Turns out most of them seem to be interested in a lot of the same kinds of things. Some sort of a gamma ray shield or something. I guess it means you can protect yourselves from the blast of a nuclear bomb. Okay. And maybe somehow the fallout, that I don't see how that follows, but it kind of seems to have that idea in the background, as if he's still thinking about nuclear fallout, which, as I mentioned in a previous report here, had to do with strontium-90. I feel it in my bones, is the title of this former essay. But here, fallout might be kind of included in a way that's not very clear. But here's the thing. They end up finding out this research is going on, and well, we better start doing the same research. And it's okay if they, not immediately, but after we're getting into it and finding some stuff. We'll start with those papers that these people publish. That may get us pointed in the right direction, then we can kind of build on that. And once they know we've got this kind of research too, they won't have some affected. So basically, by just changing a letter of one person's name who really had nothing to do with all that anyway, other than that he had the same name, somehow gets the attention of somebody to do something that could save there from being a war. Not bad. And then we said, well, but we're still a little bit distrusting, the name like Sebatinsky or Zebatinsky, take your pick, and nuclear physicists should be, maybe he stayed in touch with his relatives, maybe he shares more than family anecdotes with his family in the old country, blah, blah, blah. Let's move to someplace, but we don't want to make it look suspicious like we're doing something to him. So they arranged to have a university offer him an important chair in the physics department. A reasonable invitation, totally smooth, totally streamlined. Yeah. And what the guy was hoping, the guy was hoping for some kind of a change. And then it turns out that numerologist wasn't even some human being. He was some weird, energy creature who was placing bets with another energy creature about being able to make big changes result from small changes. Well, I guess this is one of those cases where sometimes history really can turn on a dime. It's a good little story, and I think it makes a good read. And there's still more to it. I won't spoil the rest, but I think that's enough. Thanks for listening.